So you're thinking about buying a gas station. On paper, it looks like one of the safest bets in business. There are over 150,000 of them across the United States, sitting on nearly every busy intersection, running 24/7 and serving something every driver will always need fuel. Demand feels guaranteed, predictable, almost recession-proof. But the reality underneath is very different. Despite the massive flow of money through gas stations, the actual profit from fuel is shockingly small. On average, owners make only a few cents per gallon, typically around 3 to 7 cents. When you break that down, it means that out of every dollar spent at the pump, less than 2 cents ends up with the station owner. The rest disappears into fuel supply costs, taxes, distribution, and operating expenses. A typical station might sell around 4,000 gallons per day. Even on a good margin, that translates to only a few $100s in daily profit from fuel, roughly around $100,000 per year before other costs. For a business that generates hundreds of billions in industry-wide sales, that number seems strangely low. And that's where the first misconception appears. Gas stations don't actually make their money from gas, the cost of getting in. Opening a station is not cheap. Building one from scratch can easily require millions before you even open the doors. Construction alone, pumps, canopy, store building, and basic infrastructure often runs into the low millions. Then there's the land, which in a busy suburban or urban area can cost hundreds of thousands to over $1 million on its own. But the biggest hidden expense is underground. Every gas station depends on underground fuel tanks. These tanks, piping systems, excavation work, and environmental compliance requirements can add hundreds of thousands more to the project. A single station often needs multiple tanks for different fuel types, and each fuel dispenser adds tens of thousands more. By the time everything is included, land, construction, equipment, permits, compliance, and working capital, you're often looking at a total investment somewhere between $1.5 million and $4 million just to get started. And none of that has generated a single cent yet. Selling fuel isn't the real business. Gas is not a product you create or control. Stations simply buy it from wholesalers or major oil companies and resell it with extremely thin margins. If you're operating under a major brand, you get supply stability and customer trust, but you lose control over pricing, sourcing, and even parts of your store layout. If you're independent, you gain flexibility, but you lose brand power and must fight for every customer in a market where most people choose based on price and convenience alone. Either way, the fuel business is structurally the same: extremely high volume, extremely low profit, and those margins barely move over time. Whether fuel is cheap or expensive, the per gallon profit stays almost unchanged. When oil prices rise or fall, stations simply pass the change to consumers. They sit in the middle of a massive global supply chain, acting more like a relay point than a profit center. So if fuel doesn't make money, what does? The real engine, the store. The answer is inside the building. Convenience store sales are what keep gas stations alive. Inside sales now account for a growing share of total revenue, and unlike fuel, these products actually carry healthy margins. A bottle of water, a coffee, a snack, or a car wash doesn't earn pennies. It can earn 30%, 40%, sometimes even more. That means a customer who stops for fuel but also buys a few small items often generates more profit inside the store than from the entire tank of gas they just purchased. This flips the entire business model. The fuel is not the product, it's the traffic driver. The pumps, the canopy, the tanks, all of it exists for one reason: to bring people inside the store. That's why modern gas stations increasingly look less like fuel stops and more like fast food hubs, mini markets, and service centers. Many now add hot food kitchens, branded coffee programs, car washes, and loyalty apps designed to keep customers returning. Some large operators have taken this to the extreme. Massive travel center-style locations operate almost like retail destinations, where fuel is just one of many revenue streams rather than the core business. In those cases, gas is almost a marketing tool for the store. The reality for most owners, but not every station, is a large chain. For independent owners, the economics are far less glamorous. After paying staff, utilities, rent or loan payments, insurance, credit card fees, and maintenance. Annual income often lands somewhere between modest and moderate middle-class earnings. Strong locations can do well, but weaker ones struggle to justify the initial investment. And all of this is happening while another problem sits beneath the surface literally, the hidden underground risk. Every station relies on underground storage tanks, and those tanks do not last forever. Over decades, they corrode, weaken, and sometimes leak. When that happens, fuel doesn't stay contained. It moves through soil and can eventually reach groundwater. Cleanup is expensive, complicated, and heavily regulated. Even small leaks can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to remediate. There are tens of thousands of contaminated or leaking sites already across the country, many still unresolved. And here's the critical point: liability follows ownership. If you own the station, when a leak is discovered, you are responsible for the cleanup regardless of who installed the tanks or when the problem began. That risk is one of the most serious hidden factors in the entire industry. Because of this, buyers are required to conduct environmental testing before purchasing any site, and insurance requirements for underground storage tanks are strict and costly. In some cases, private insurers avoid the risk entirely. The long-term pressure on top of all of this, the industry is facing a slow structural shift. Electric vehicles are steadily gaining market share. As more drivers transition away from gasoline, long-term fuel demand is expected to decline. Some projections suggest a significant portion of gas stations could become unprofitable in the coming decades as fuel sales shrink. This is not a sudden collapse, it's a gradual reshaping of transportation itself. The industry has already started responding. Many stations are adding EV charging stations, not because fuel is disappearing tomorrow, but because customer behavior is changing. EV drivers tend to spend more time on site and often purchase more in-store items while waiting, which strengthens the convenience store model even further. The bigger picture. Across the United States, the number of gas stations has slowly declined over the years, even while convenience store revenue continues to rise. The industry is becoming more concentrated, with larger operators gaining an advantage through scale, better supply deals, and stronger retail strategies. Smaller operators are under pressure from every direction: thin fuel margins, high startup costs, environmental liability, and long-term uncertainty in fuel demand. And yet, the system continues to operate because it is deeply embedded into everyday life. Cars still need fuel, people still stop for convenience items. Roads are still built around these stations. But the core truth remains unchanged: gas stations don't survive because of fuel. They survive because of everything else built around it. And the real question for anyone entering the business today is simple: are you buying a fuel operation? Or a retail business that just happens to sell gasoline?